Chapter 3, Part 3. A sharp right turn on the National Road. So the hypnotic session begins, and Ted Blocker asks Stephen Kilburn, "Are you standing next to your car? And can you see what's on your shoulder?" And Stephen Kilburn says, "Yeah, standing next to my car, next to the car. And I see a big wrench. And it was behind him. And it had him by the shoulder. And it was hurting him. And he asked him, 'Are you trying to get loose from it?' And he was like, 'No, I'm really afraid. And that there's a light in some direction, not coming from the car lights, but behind a fence.' And he sees some figures dressed in black. And there's around 3 or more of these figures. And they are on the other side of the fence. And they are coming over the fence. And then Ted asks, 'How tall is the fence?' And it was higher than him, like 6 feet. So the wrench was turning him. And it was turning him towards the street. And he was within 6 feet of the car. So the wrench was on his shoulder, and it was long and brass. And something confusing that he says is that he said that it was day, but it was also night. So that doesn't make sense. He says a lot of things that are incoherent during the hypnotic regression. He seemed to be very scared and very agitated. And then Ted Blocker asks, "Do you see anybody?" And he says, "I'm really scared." Then Stephen says that, yeah, there was somebody behind the fence. And he climbed over, and that individual is on his side. And that the figure was very white. And when he first saw the figure, he was really scared. And this figure was smaller than him, almost his size. And his hands, and his neck, and his face, and his head are very white. And he didn't have any hair on. He didn't have any hair on his face nor his head. This individual was not like us. That every time he sees him, he got really scared because he was so different. So Dr. Franklin asks, like, "Is he hurting you?" And Stephen Kilburn was like, "No, he just scaring me." Then Stephen says that there's some type of noise. It's a noise like from leather, like maybe like gloves rubbing against each other. And then he said that this individual was really ugly, that he doesn't have regular skin. Like he has funny skin. Like it looks putty. Like it looks something that you can move with your hand. And the skin was like whitish, like shockish. Kind of like shock from shock that you use on a board. And it had like a little tint of gray in it. And then Ted Blocker asks, what is he wearing from the neck down? And Stephen Kilburn says, a black turtleneck or something like that. And this figure was now standing in front of Stephen Kilburn, and he was very close. And he also said that he had perfect fingers, that this figure scared him with his fingers. And during this hypnotic regression, Stephen Kilburn was very scared and very agitated, very traumatized. And at this point, Dr. Franklin began to bring Stephen out of the trance. So Steve rubbed his eyes and came back to full consciousness, and there was a relief in the room because the ordeal was very traumatic. And they left the office and everybody was very stunned. And then Budd Hopkins said that there is a misconception about hypnosis, that the subjects, once they come out of the trance state, that they can't remember what happened during the hypnosis. But that's not the case. They actually remember what happened during the trance, and they remember everything very vividly.